Hi everyone, it's Andrea. Thank you so much for taking a look at my beautiful French journal. I will tell you that nearly everything within the journal is vintage or antique French, and I'll speak to, as I go through the video, I'll speak to which items are actually not. I have a variety of papers that I used in the journal. These were papers from a 1700s book, an 1800s book. I have quite a few of these old magazines. These were from 1930s, and I used some of that. I had purchased some books that had replicas, but they were from the French archives in 1919. And so there are some duplicate documents in here that are from the originals, but they are still over 100 years old. And then a variety of other French style papers. And of course, these French contract papers, I'm just absolutely in love with. And I don't know if you can really see the texture, but they make beautiful tags, backgrounds, and such. And I have plan to put another packet together for everyone for sale. So this is my journal, and the cover is made from velvet that was dyed by Sheila. The sari silk ties are by Sheila. This is a brooch that I'm going to attach. The veil lace that covers the front, it was purchased from Susie Oberman's shop. And the bottom lace happened, it's French, but it happened because I realized that my journal was too long, and I decided that I was going to cut it, and I made a mistake during the cut and ended up cutting it too short. So this was some French lace or trim, technically, that I had, and I just kind of threw it on there so that it hid the fact that my signature is extended. It's really, really thick. It's 3 signatures, too thick probably for what it could have been. It has the button sewn bindings on the spine, and that's how we sew the signatures in, and I was taught that by Karen Anderson at our retreat in Vermont. So I have bead dangles, and they don't necessarily match the journal itself, but I will show you a technique in the middle of the video when I get to the middle signature where I created the bead dangles in advance and attached them using buttons. So as I go through this, I will share with you that I have used a bit of the veil lace over some vintage paper that was from a French Parisian tour book. Let me get these strings out of the way. And you can see that I lined the inside of the journal with some of the contract paper. I find it beautiful. I received a railroad history book that had a combination of advertisements and postcards and some beautiful, just random papers that go along with it. And so those are scattered throughout the journal here, and that's what this came from. So here again is the contract paper and some vintage lace. Now this button, this piece is not French, this piece is, and of course then the button is from my stash. This is one of the postcards from that railroad book, and this is one of the duplicate documents that was from the archives, but again, from a reprint in 1919. I have used old vintage lace that I had, an envelope that was from France, and broke up the contract documents and placed them on tags that go inside. So the tag surface is new. Most of the ties on the paper clips here are from Sheila's work or some Dupioni silk that I had that I tore. There are some, and I'll show you those, that actually they were holding together the book that I bought from the archives. So there are numerous tags and embellishments. Some of the postcards are just so darn fun. And this one was actually written on in 1919. I absolutely love this one. I love these little pieces of paper. The lace that I purchased is salesman samples from a healthy amount of time ago, and they come with these little tags attached to them that say made in France. So I kind of use those sporadically throughout. Here is where I used some of that magazine and then covered it with some of the veil lace that I have and made a lace pocket. Here is another one of those duplicates. And I'll tell you, I've thrown on some bead dangles that either I made or that Sheila made, and all of them inspired by Sheila. And I know I'm gonna have to go back and do some touch up, put some eyelets in and things like that. So some antique or vintage lace, and more again from, this is from the title page from that Parisian guidebook. So the backs are plain, this one's not. And I was able to get, there's a lady that I follow, and this button is French. I was able to get that from her. This, I received a package, I purchased, I should say, a package of vintage. It's either vintage or antique, and everything I got, I believe, was just vintage. But from France, her textile packages and trims, and so that's where this came from. Again, some of this, I actually think truly, this was probably new. The contract papers are scattered throughout here. This, I believe, was a Lorna Taylor stamp, and someone put it onto this paper, and I snuck it into my journal because I really liked it. So lots of vintage French documents and some postcards that are fun. My first set of bead dangles was truly inspired by the color of the postcard. I put them together to match the postcard, not to match the dangle hanging off to the side, or the journal hanging off to the side. There's some just little tuck spots in here, and again, here's the example of that French lace with that tag on it. This is a French Les Mis book that I have that is vintage. This tag was really fun, and I took a variety of, this is a piece of a French map, and then put some pieces on it. These were parts of the journal that were from the 1900s that are in French. Again, this is just a French document that has been made into a tag, and I have added some of Sheila's nice bead dangles. Here we have a variety of vintage documents, and I did a layover of some vintage lace from France, yay. Just some pieces, checks, things that can be used, spaces that can be used to create the tuck spots. And again, same thing here, lace, found pieces of items and cut them apart, and then put items in another pocket and tuck spot. Again here, some plain space here. One of my favorites, and again, these are checks that have been taken apart and put into a tuck space to be used for journal writing or for a tuck spot for other items. Small pieces. I like this particular lace because it stems down. This is just a piece of Dupioni silk that I had left over from our retreat. This is a beautiful postcard that's attached to another contract document, and another, this is the Eiffel Tower. It's not written on, but I thought it was really pretty to go in there. And again, the Made in France tags. So that's the beginning, the end of the first signature. I have the second signature. I have again used my, so the Et Anna is from the mid 1800s, and the late 1800s is this Les Mis. I have just some random pieces of journal options here in a tuck spot. This is from 1728, the paper. This is just a folded up journal tuck spot. This is textiles from the person that I purchased and got a bundle of products from her. So I tore some of them up and I used some of them in here. And I have another tuck spot. So I have some vintage wallpaper, and I have another of the postcards. This was a really fun. This is a French document over some French lace with a French map covered by some of the French lace and made into a nice little tag. The options to document your work here, there's lots of journal space. So this is the piece that I promised everybody I would review, and it happened accidentally, and that's why I made some bead dangles in advance. I had to take out something. In fact, I haven't got all of it cleaned up, but I had to take out some pieces that were in the middle. It was too thick. And when I did, I ended up accidentally cutting these too short. So I made my dangles, and then I fed them through a vintage mother of pearl button and tied them off and glued it down. So that's how I add pre-created bead dangles to a journal when I have my ties too short. And it was super, super easy. You just have to make sure that the holes in your buttons are going to be able to allow you to thread the waxed linen through. So that is my second set of dangles. Oops, I've got Sheila string everywhere. I have continued on with my varied papers. There's more of the tags from the magazine, and I was just cutting these flowers off of a piece of lace that had actually been in the center of that. This is one of those documents that was replicated, and more pieces and tuck spots and things that you can write on. This I really love. This is one of the textile pieces that came from France, and I took a piece of my document and attached things to it to make kind of a fun little tag, and it covers a little tuck spot for people to tuck in, for me to tuck in. So I have more of my papers, and that's the end of my second signature. My third signature has much of the same, and so I've just used some of that journal as well as French papers to create the final pieces. More postcards. Again, this is my vintage wallpaper that came from France, and it's not necessarily something exceptionally old. I think I said vintage. Yeah, vintage, that's what I want to say. It's not exceptionally old, but it was Parisian and it was fun. Lots of little spots to tuck and clip. Lots of pieces of ephemera to enjoy and play with. Folded book papers. There are checks covering these. This was a challenging journal because all of the paper I was using, I couldn't use any digital prints, and all of the paper that I was using was very monochromatic, and so I ended up with a very bland, almost looking journal. So I was trying to add pops of color here and there. When I get into this space here, so these two they're little tags if you like. The ribbon on these is from the ribbon that was holding together the vintage books that were from France. And so I included that ribbon that I had that I was able to salvage in there. More. And some beautiful paper. I am very much in love with these. This is the center, my final signature, and I went more along the lines with what the color was in the theme. I don't like my dangles to all be uniform in length, and I don't care for them necessarily to land all together. I kind of like a staggered effect. Everybody has their own preference, and so I don't necessarily stagger mine the way other people keep I stagger mine a little more than other people keep theirs uniform. So again, just a variety of beautiful paper and pieces of items that can be enjoyed to either journal or just look at because of their beauty and age, their association with a country that we all seem to be really enamored with. Here's just a veil lace, and I have to put an eyelet through this to hold, well, obviously it didn't work, but to hold that bead dangle together with that. I have more pieces, more letters. These are old bill heads, vintage checks, books, journals, papers that I've just taken and created lots of journal space and tuck space. And as we're approaching the end, I tried to incorporate lace into some of the plain pages. It's another postcard, and my final pages are here. And so, and each of the front and the back are lined by the contract paper, and they are tuck spots for tags. And that is my little French journal. So I appreciate you taking a moment to take a peek, and I hope that for anybody who has had a snafu with their ties and wanted, or cut them short, but then come back later and want to add a set of bead dangles to it, that this method might give you an option. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again for looking. Bye-bye.